Great, so we've established that Oswald can't physically time travel, and due to him inserting himself into the memory of the pit, changes made inside could impact the building in the present and the minds of others at the event. It's a pretty cool concept, so it's nice to see that it's being explored here. What do you mean we can save the MCI? Return to the Pit is the latest iteration of the Into the Pit story, and with it comes questions, as any FNAF release does, as well as some interesting lore implications, including some questionable ones. Today, we will be exploring what this book has to offer and answering the questions it brings along with it. Questions such as, what are the mechanics of the ball pit? Is it really time travel? What are Eleanor's origins? What connections does she have with Pit Trap, if any? What is Happiest Day? Who is the receiver? And what's up with Andrew? All of these will be answered as we once again take a plunge into the ball pit to discover the absurdity of Return to the Pit. To start off, what are the mechanics of the ball pit, and is it really time travel? For the longest time, many theorists have been led to believe that it was infected with agony, memories, and souls of various tragedies, namely the memory of the MCI. The original story of Into the Pit presented the illusion of time travel, as Oswald traveled back to 1985, witnessing the events of the MCI unfold. However, seeing as this event from the story does not happen how it's depicted in the canon, namely the patrons in disarray as the event unfolded and the MCI not being stuffed into suits, and William being a flesh monster in a suit, it was clear this was not an accurate depiction of the MCI. Later in the Fazbear Fright series, we learn Oswald did not travel back in time, but had entered the memory of the MCI contained within the ball pit. This idea is backed up with Larson gaining connections to the ball pit after he was infected with the agony of the Afton amalgamation. He started to get visions of various memories of different individuals and events all being linked with a common object, the ball pit. When Jake enters the pit, he enters the memory of Millie, one of the souls trapped in the pit, in order to give them a happiest day. Once she had received her happiest day, she was able to find peace. And then the Into the Pit game released. And now we can impact the building from within the memory, and Return to the Pit reinforces the idea the ball pit is some form of time travel. However, despite the newer releases, I still do not believe the ball pit is a means of physical time travel, at least not in the traditional sense. One of the ideas around the Into the Pit story is that it's meant to seem like it's time travel, so I don't see why that would change in any of the other iterations of the story. I think Oswald entered the memory contained within the pit as we all assumed, and did not physically time travel. I think Oswald experienced the memory all within his mind. To explain what exactly is going on with Oswald, I think it's a good idea to do a bit of good old-fashioned research. On the Luton Paranormal Society website, it explores the theory of time slips. This theory explains what allegedly is a form of time travel via paranormal means. The scientific explanation behind the theory suggests that time is fluid rather than fixed, existing within the context of a singular point of space. It explains how more time for the individual could have passed in contradiction to the time which has actually passed, explaining how time can be inexplicably lost. An explanation towards the loss of time can be explained as a lapse of concentration, a period of drowsiness, or even sleep. I believe this is exactly what happens with Oswald. He had entered a memory that had been imprinted from the event of the MCI into the ball pit. I believe Oswald, while he counted from 1 to 100, gave him enough time to fall asleep and entered the memory in his mind. This phenomenon, I believe, is exactly what happens to Oswald within Return to the Pit. On page 21, it reads, "You look around for Dad, but he's nowhere to be seen. Did you think you bailed and went home? Oh man, you're gonna be in so much trouble." But that's when you look at the clock on the wall. It wasn't like you were paying close attention or anything, but it looks like not even 10 minutes have passed. In fact, you're pretty sure the clock reads the same time as you when you went into the pit. I believe whenever Oswald enters the pit, some wacky weird stuff happens, such as him suddenly aging up when he travels too far to Freddy's. Yes, this is a thing that happens in this book. However, when he leaves the pit, it's back to regular life. Then again, Chica answers Oswald's neighbor's door, so like, I don't know what's up with that. Unless he is trapped in the pit until he returns at the end of the story, but who knows. So, we've established how Oswald can enter 1985 without physical time travel. However, what's up with him altering things in reality if it's not? Oh boy. This is where FNAF adds its own little twist on the phenomenon. Because of course it has to. In FNAF, at least in FNAF World, it is suggested that whatever actions we take out there have an effect there. This idea of things on one side of reality impacting the other has been something discussed since 2016. This happens in the Into the Pit game. Oswald can place a fourth paper plate pal onto the wall, and when we return back to Jeff's, that paper plate pal is still on the wall. And when Pit Trap breaks the door in the memory, the door in the present is no longer there. This whole premise ties into the whole building being haunted by the memory of the MCI. The building being altered via paranormal means is something that has happened since the very first game, with It's Me showing up on the walls, posters of crying children, newspaper clippings appearing and disappearing, the poster of Freddy ripping his head off, and Golden Freddy's poster appearing. A similar concept is explored in the movie, where the building reacts to how the spirits are feeling. The building reacting to things can also be seen with Mike's dreams of Garrett's kidnapping. Within these memories, the missing kids appear and you can hear the dream play out on the speakers in the office. It is very hard to hear, but trust me, it's there.
That car. Did you see that car? You see what happened?
The reason why the building can be altered from the memory to the present is because the building is haunted by that very same memory. So when Oswald inserts himself into the memory, whatever changes are made to it will be reflected in the present. Applying this concept elsewhere in the book, I think the idea of Oswald inserting himself into the memory also affected Chip's own memories of the event. Within Return to the Pit, Oswald meets a grown-up Chip who remembers him from 1985. What I think is happening here is because Oswald had entered the memory, he inserted himself into the minds of those he met during those days. Man, what is this series sometimes? Great, so we've established that Oswald can't physically time travel, and due to him inserting himself into the memory of the pit, changes made inside could impact the building in the present and the minds of others at the event. It's a pretty cool concept, so it's nice to see that it's being explored here. What do you mean we can save the MCI? Yep. There's an ending where Oswald enters an arcade game, and here he can serve the kids cake, symbolic of Happiest Day, and in doing so effectively prevents the event from happening before it even happens. Okay, so I actually don't think it's as simple as him saving the kids. The fact we need a very specific gold coin to play the game implies this is something exclusive to this book, not an actual arcade at Freddy's. I found a bonus ending while reading, which is why we'll be exploring a theory posted on the FNAF Theories Reddit, one which I agree with after reading the book for myself. There are 2 times that the yellow rabbit dies in the memory, and both times the ball pit vanishes. The implication here is that the ball pit is only haunted because of the MCI. If it wasn't for the MCI, then the collection of souls and agony it gains over the course of decades would not have accumulated due to this event having never happened. With the agony gone, the ball pit is no longer haunted, which is why the kids are ready for a happiest day. The first time this happens is because Oswald kills the yellow rabbit, where he returns to the room where the ball pit should be, but it's gone. In its place is a table with a group of kids ready to have their cake, but Oswald is trapped in 85 forever. The second time this happens is in an 8-bit recreation of the 85 Freddys. In the pit's place in the arcade is a set of tables, the exact place where Oswald serves the kids cake. After the yellow rabbit explodes, Oswald is sent back to the present, and in the pit's place is a set of arcade games, including the one he just played, with the clues of the ball pit being replaced with something connecting back to the happiest day. I think I know what's happening in the happiest day ending. I think unlike last time, because Oswald had helped set up the happiest day for the kids, this allowed him to be included in the happiest day. As a result, this granted him with his own happiest day. This is why, unlike every other time he left the pit, Oswald isn't set back to a cheap Jeff's Pizza, but a fully functional, lively Jeff's. The rushing stops, and you steady yourself. You are standing in front of the arcade game again, and the game is so totally real. not made up of pixels or anything. You look up and realize you aren't in the past anymore, you are back at Jeff's Pizza. But since when did Jeff's have old-fashioned arcade games? It's when you hear the noise, the dinging of customers enjoying their food. You look around and see the booths are full. Jeff looks happy and satisfied being behind his counter. As for you, well, you're standing in a corner with 3 other arcade games against the wall. You realize only then that you're where the ball pit used to be. On the wall near Oz hangs a newspaper which reads, "Kids saved from certain death. Whole town rejoices." On it contains the image of the yellow rabbit being arrested and put into a police car, with 5 kids and their parents watching him being taken away. Despite the obvious implications here, I don't think it's entirely accurate. The whole newspaper feels almost comical, unrealistic. Why would the police arrest Afton without taking his mascot suit off? Why would all 5 kids and their parents be in the picture and not anyone else? Why would the police have been there to stop the events from happening in the first place when they weren't there for it when it originally happened? Why is it that when the yellow rabbit dies, the ball pit is replaced with something that would connect with the children's happiest day? It happening twice in the book feels intentional to me, and Madness Combat Man agrees. I think the secret ending of Return to the Pit is Oswald's happiest day, one where Jeff's is lively, the town is lively, the kids had been saved, and everything that happened between you and your dad had been forgotten, at least in Oswald's view. This ending, come to think of it, is like the 3-star ending in the game. Make of that as you will. So I don't think the MCI were actually saved. I think it's an allusion to Oswald, and he is now in his own happiest day in the pit. Even if the MCI being saved was the implication, I don't think that can happen. Feels like a fun bonus for the book, considering the arcade needs a special gold coin, suggesting this isn't a regular arcade that's just chilling at Freddy's. Now that we've explored the mechanics of the ball pit, what does Return to the Pit offer for the dangerous and powerful Eleanor? Well, in one of the endings of the book, we can leave Freddy's in 1985 into an alley. Before proceeding out of the alley, you hear a little girl's voice pleading for help. Here, we are presented with an option. Either you continue to run towards the street, or you decide to follow the sound. If you follow the sound, we can find a toy doll resembling a girl. She has red hair in pigtails, wearing a red dress. Her face, legs and arms are bone white with a blood red nose and crimson circles on her cheeks. The mysterious clown-like doll here would be Eleanor. But why is she here? To explain this, we must continue reading the rest of the ending. As Oswald continues to descend into the cellar, Pit Trap enters. When he begins to attack Oswald, high-pitched laughter can be heard from the doll, which only continues to get louder as she snaps her head in Oswald's direction. So, what exactly does this mean? I believe this ending shows us one of 2 things. The first option would be showing that Eleanor is not only connected to the memory of the MCI, but her powers originate from this event. The second option would be that she is also Pit Trap, or in some way, controlling his actions. While both are very likely after this ending, if I were to lean on one which would be most likely, it would be the first option. Why do I believe this? Well, if we flip to the final epilogue of Fazbear Frights, Jake comments regarding Eleanor's origins imply that they lie with not only the pit, but this event. It was a horrible place, he could tell. Not just that it looked horrible, all the dusty and faded and smelling of decay, but it was horrible. It was like a graveyard for the souls of victims of a wicked wrongness that he didn't fully understand. What had happened here? Where did Eleanor come from? Had she caused all this chaos, or had the chaos somehow caused her? Now, this quote is a bit ambiguous, but with the combination of this quote with the ending from Return to the Pit and the MCI being the catalyst for the ball pit becoming haunted, it's pretty clear in my eyes that Eleanor had not caused all of the chaos within the pit. The chaos had caused her. More specifically, the catalyst for the haunted ball pit had caused her. So that's what I think Eleanor is. A mannequin brought to life by the agony of the MCI. In the same way the ball pit is haunted by the memory, in the same way the building is. On the topic of things connecting to the MCI, Return to the Pit also has a side plot revolving around a happiest day, one reminiscent to the happiest day in FNAF 3, bringing us to our next questions. What is happiest day, and who is the receiver of the happiest day? The happiest day in FNAF 3 is completed by going into Atari-styled minigames, giving cake to 4 spirits, bringing them all together for a birthday party where we also give cake to a 5th spirit. the one donning a golden Freddy mask. Once they do, all the spirits in the minigame vanish, and with them their masks begin to fall towards the ground as balloons rise, symbolizing in some way these spirits have been able to move on. As we know, the series progressed beyond FNAF 3, and with it, the Happiest Day minigame became increasingly more complicated than its initial intention. However, I believe I know what the Happiest Day is. In Five Nights at Freddy's, a means for a spirit to move on is via a happy memory, or turning a bad memory into a good one. Looking at future releases past FNAF 3, it appears that the Happiest Day minigames have been recontextualized to be the memories of the crying child, with each one having some connection with FNAF 4, the most obvious of all being the Happiest Day minigame with its layout being a reversal of Fredbear's family diner. Logically, with these connections, many have concluded that the crying child is the receiver of Happiest Day. However, I don't think this is the case, and I think the receiver has always been who it was originally, the 5th MCI spirit haunting Golden Freddy, Cassidy. While Crying Child being the receiver naturally makes sense given the minigame's connections to FNAF 4, Scott has been telling us for some time now that the 5th spirit for the Happiest Day is Cassidy. The first instance of this is from the Survival Logbook, a book showcasing to us that Cassidy is communing with the Crying Child to help him remember his past, to help him move on. The book contains a page of a black-haired girl receiving cake from the puppet, with the text above being all about memories and reflecting on the happiest day of your life, with the faded text saying, "The party was for you." For further evidence for the Happiest Day being Crying Child's birthday, we can flip to one of the coupon pages being a Happiest Day coupon, with almost everything being offered in the package being what we see in the minigame. Above these coupons reads the following: "Take a bite! Add of fun on your next birthday." Now this is significant because this is the only coupon page in the book that doesn't have a mention of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, implying this page is different. The other instance of Scott pushing us towards Cassidy being the receiver is in Return to the Pit. In the 8-bit recreation of the 85 Freddys, we reach a party room where the kids take a seat wanting to be served cake. From here, Oswald can give cake to the missing kids. If you decide to follow through with this, there is an emphasis on the last kid being described as a girl with curly hair. When you give all 5 kids the cake, the game ends and you're rewarded with the secret ending of the book. Now, an issue people have with this girl being Cassidy is the fact that she has curly hair, and from the 4th closet, she is described as having long black hair, similar to the Survival Logbook. As such, people believe the last kid is Susie because she has curly hair. However, I think people are laser focusing on one singular detail when the whole narrative being presented here is one about Happiest Day. For the ending, we are in an 8-bit recreation of Freddy's in a party room where feeding 5 kids cake rewards us with beating the game, unlocking an ending of the book placing an emphasis on the last kid, a girl. We can take this further and say Oswald is meant to represent the puppet helping the kids by serving them cake like they do in FNAF 3. I think it's pretty clear what this ending is trying to tell us. Plus, Cassidy also means curly hair, with the new kid's story having a black curly-haired corpse in Golden Freddy. This book is straight up telling us that the receiver of the Happiest Day is Cassidy. So hold up, if it is in fact her, then why does everything else in FNAF 3's minigame connect back to the Crying Child in some way? Well, to answer this, we need to consider the idea that the MCI spirits are trapped not only in the metal of the animatronics, but the memories of the Crying Child. This is explained in a theory called Shatter Victim, where each of the missing kids are in some way linked to the Crying Child's memories. I think this idea of the kids being trapped by these memories is present in this very book. In the arcade, the Yellow Rabbit ties up all 5 kids to chairs and places a hat onto each of the kids' heads, placing them into some kind of trance. We get a look at what this trance is like in one of the game overs, where Oswald is also given a party hat which places him into a false state of peace. He darts out to the side and dives for the exit. There's almost enough space, but the rabbit manages to grab you by your shirt and drag you into the room. It slams the hat on your head and you feel very calm and sleepy, very at peace. What I think this is communicating to us is that the missing children are trapped within the memories of the crying child due to his broken state, as said in FNAF 4. In FNAF, a broken soul can't move on unless they are put back together. The reason for Cassidy being the receiver of the happiest day is because she is trapped within the memory of the birthday party due to her possessing the animatronic that resulted in the death of the crying child. That's the reason why Cassidy is the receiver of the happiest day, because she's trapped in that memory. She represents him in this memory just as the other kids do in their respective memories. The party was for you. It was for him. It is his party. The minigame doubles as both Cassidy, being the literal receiver, while taking the place of the crying child's, representing him as it's his memory she's trapped in. By bringing all of the pieces of the crying child together, he can rest. As for the MCI, well, it's very possible that they are freed from this too, depending on the placement of Happiest Day. However, given the fact that the recreation of the minigame happens from within an arcade game, I think it's possible that Happiest Day does happen in FNAF 3. What this would mean is that as the MCI are in Molten Freddy, whatever remains of their fragments in the shells at Fazbear's Fright also contains the pieces of CC, allowing him to move on in FNAF 3, while the other souls are freed in FFPS. However, that's just speculation. Now that we've answered that, it leaves us with one question. What about Andrew? As we know, there are 5 bodies in this book. Maybe 6 if we think the body 2 days before the main event is meant to be Andrew. However, I think context implies that this might be one of the core 5 missing children. So, what does that mean for the canonicity of this book? I think just like the other books in the interactive novel series so far, it is in the game's continuity. However, this does not undermine what the other interpret versions have to offer for the series. So, what does that mean for Stitchline? Well, I'm not too sure, as I believe Tails is in the game's continuity. It would mean that Stitchline is too, yet this book could suggest otherwise. However, regardless of that answer, it does not change the possibility of Andrew being in the games. Could this book be saying he isn't? Sure, but I don't think it necessarily does. Not when so much points towards it being the case. Scott told us that Fazbear Frights was designed to give answers to the games in a Reddit post. Here's a quote from there. Over the next few years, there are a lot of projects planned, and most are very story driven. Lots of the later stories will answer some of the biggest questions from the fanbase over this past year, in my opinion. Very few people will likely ever feel completely satisfied, as there are just too many headcanons out there and so many great ideas on where the story could go. But I think there are good things to be found for those who are looking. All I can do is say that some questions will be answered, even if it may not always be the answer you wanted. Be patient. Let me at least say this. Future games will look forward, but look to the novels to fill in some of the blanks to the past. Even if Stitchline is not meant to be in the main continuity, it still has the events of the games play out in this story, and we can apply things from these books to the games. Elements such as the explanation to Remnant, the concept of agony, soul shattering, and characters like Andrew. The argument that if Stitchline is not within the games means Andrew is not because his character is tied to the narrative is not a good one. Eleanor is tied to the narrative of Stitchline and is a character that only came to exist due to the narrative of Stitchline. Yet, she's in Return to the Pit and has a victim in Tales from the Pizzaplex. Many of the concepts shared also cross over into the games, so I fail to see why Andrew's character can't also. Many characters have crossed over into other media in this franchise, so if Scott wanted to include Andrew, he absolutely could. Fright serves to give answers, and Andrew is one of those answers. They are currently doing the same for the movies, where they help fill in the gaps to the past, and the novel trilogy also served as a basis for future games and characters in the games, with concepts from them crossing over. The Ultimate Guide tells us to use the novels to understand concepts and characters of the games, and seeing how Sister Location and FFPS has elements pulled from the novels, I think it's clear Scott changed his mind about them not being used to understand the game and overall franchise, which is more telling when the post saying not to was deleted, and not because of age, as all the posts remain. It was deleted manually. On the topic of the novel trilogy, I need to explain this. While the novels are in their own continuity, they are a part of the same canon, the same fictional universe. The definitions of the words, or at least how Scott uses them, is as follows. Canon is everything that is released and approved by Scott, all existing in the same universe. However, continuity is in relation to the timeline of events within its own narrative. What this means is that characters and concepts explored in one continuity can exist across other continuities, as all timelines are considered a part of the same universe. And this ties back to Scott's original post on the Silver Eyes. The games and the books should be considered to be separate continuities, even if they do share many familiar elements. So yes, the book is canon, just as the games are. That doesn't mean they are intended to fit together like two puzzle pieces. The book is a reimagining of the Five Nights at Freddy's story, and if you go into it with that mindset, I think you will really enjoy it. Me using these books to explain how things could work in the games is not me forcing two puzzle pieces together that don't fit. It's me looking at one continuity and seeing that one piece fits into the slot of one puzzle, and then cross-referencing with another continuity to see if a similar piece can fit into that puzzle. This is how I use the books and the movies to help inform us of what could be happening in the games, just how Scott told us to use Fazbear Frights. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and hey, if you did, consider subscribing and liking the video. It's greatly appreciated. If you agree or disagree with anything said, feel free to share down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy your day/evening.